What we're going to do here this morning is share a very high-level view of what it means to be Reach Rockwall. And so our mission is to make, mature, and multiply followers of Jesus. You can go ahead and throw that up there right there. Thank you, Robbie, for making that. Doesn't that look awesome? We are God's family on mission. What's our mission? Being God's family here in this area. A lot of churches say it a lot of great different ways. This is the way we're saying it. We're God's family. We're His people. We've been given His name. And each pastor, each leader is going to come up here in a second and answer the question, how will Reach in this aspect of ministry, in this aspect of being the church, in this aspect of coming together and being God's family on mission, how will we make, mature, and multiply followers of Jesus through, let me just do for those theologians out there, through the empowerment of God's Spirit. One of my responsibilities here at Reach is kind of the overseeing and the prayerful leading of what happens when big church is happening, right? What happens when the church, the body, the assembled body comes together in a big group? And I think the temptation when we say things like big church is to think that's really going to church. For so many of us, our church experience has been born out of our culture, which is understandable but not biblical. And that is that you come to church and you sit and you soak, and then you leave. Like church is something that pastors do for you. And the biblical mindset is that the church is to come together not to be a bunch of spectators with 5 people talking, 5 people praying, 3, 2. Like what's your church background? How many people actually shared? How many people actually spoke? How many people actually even prayed? Because I've had a great church experience. I've been to good churches in my life. But even in those churches, I bet like the same 3 dudes, almost always dudes, did like 85% of almost everything. The praying, the talking, the announcing, and people just sat and listened and spectated. But that is not really the picture you get in Scripture. Whereas the cultural expectation is for the people to be spectators, the biblical expectation is for people, put in that blank, you, to be ministers.
I think for so long, the American church, has kind of looked at the time when we come together and sing songs as kind of this personal, individual, one-on-one kind of me time. Kind of this bow our heads, close our eyes kind of mentality where it's just you and the Lord, and that's it. I'm sure you've heard pastors, worship leaders say, forget about the person next to you, just you and the idea is contrary to the Bible. It's contrary to our mission here at Reach Rockwall to, like Bo said, make, mature, multiply followers of Jesus. We're told in Hebrews 10 not to forsake the assembly. So once we assemble, why would we forsake each other? Why would we gather together just to ignore each other? It doesn't make any sense. But as we come together, as we lift our voices, as we sing eternal biblical truths, as we pour out our hearts to our Savior, we can all, every single one of us, can play a part in encouraging and equipping one another to trust in, rely on, and rest in Jesus. We can stir one another's affections for Jesus. We can beckon one another to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. I believe God will reveal himself in ways that will inspire us and fuel us as God's family to then go back out on mission in the community with a fresh sense of identity and purpose as we aim to make, mature, and multiply followers of Jesus.
My name is Johnny, and I am one of the pastors here. My role is specifically how we make, mature, and multiply followers of Jesus through community and mission. We are going to be all about missions both locally and globally. This morning, I'm going to talk a little bit more just about the gospel communities and what local missions is going to look like and why we chose to do it the way we did. But one of the things that we're all about is when it comes to what does this look like and how do we live this out, the default is so often to just go to what we grew up in. And so when we talk about discipleship, we picture programs and an accountability meeting in Starbucks where we go over a book and maybe do a book study. And those are all awesome things that are a part of it. But just like Bo was talking about in terms of our gathering here, like that's just barely scratching the surface of what Jesus calls us to. And so rather than looking to what we know, we want to look to Jesus, right? Because Jesus says, you want to know what this looks like, follow me, when he called his disciples. And so we all agree Jesus is the greatest disciple maker that ever lived, right? And so if we just look at what he did and then try to mimic that, I think we'll find that the Spirit moves in a way that he makes the disciples through us if we live how he lived, because it's constantly what he calls us to. And so when he called his disciples, he tells them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men, right? If you just follow me, I will teach you what it looks like to make, mature, and multiply followers of me. And he tells them, I'm about to go, but a new commandment I give to you. Love each other like I have loved you. This is the community piece, right? How did Jesus love them? He spent time with them, more than just on Sundays, more than just when they were having a Bible study, but everyday life in the regular rhythms of the things that they were doing, they were together and they were learning what it looked like to follow and live like Jesus, right? So he said, and in all of those things, he's serving them, right? We just saw they shared a meal together, he washes their feet, and Jesus says, I'm about to go, but I want you to love each other like I loved you. It's a community piece. He's calling them, he's modeling for them what community looks like. And then he says the missional piece. This is how mission is accomplished, right? Because in this, he says, people will see the way you live alongside each other, and they will know who I am. They will know that you follow me, and all the world will give glory to who God is. You see, community and mission can't be separated. We can no longer just be individuals going about our own business, doing the things that we desire and the times that we desire, but what we're learning is how do we become a family? But what we're figuring out is, okay, together, how do we live together in everyday life and everyday intentionality to make much of who Jesus is and to proclaim the gospel so that we can make disciples both locally and globally?
Our mission, our vision is to really do everything corporately as a church, as a body, as a family on mission. Hey, you don't just go to church, just like we don't just come on Sundays, but we are the church, no matter what age you are, whether you're a toddler or you're 52 or 112. We are the church no matter where we're at. And so we're going to mirror and follow the same pattern of being family on mission in student ministry. So really make the flow from student into adult a smooth transition into, hey, this isn't a new thing going to the big church. I've always been a part of the church. We've been doing this from day one.
As each pastor has communicated their area of responsibility, you may have noticed we're kind of funneling down in specificity, right? So we started out with Bo and Heath talking about the 30,000 foot, the corporate gathering that is everyone, the entire family, extended family coming together, and then Johnny and Chris brought it down a little bit to ground level of what is that going to be looking like week in and week out. How are we going to be fleshing that out in the gospel communities? And then I'm going to bring it down to root level. Sif, our goal is truly to make, mature, and multiply followers of Jesus Christ. Not followers of ourselves, not followers of this church, not followers of a particular methodology, but actual followers of Jesus Christ. Then our focus in how we're interacting with one another, how we're discipling one another, how we are worshiping must be on what is most important. And we believe that is the heart. God says in 1 Samuel, the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. A pastor who is much wiser than me once said, the church should look like the waiting room for a doctor's office, not the waiting room for a job interview. Right? At a job interview, you are dressed your best. You're trying to put your best you forward and make it look like you are way more awesome than you really are. Man, a doctor's office, everybody's there because I can't figure this out. I need help. You know everyone else there in the room is sick. There's no you wouldn't be there if you weren't sick. And you're looking around and you're not thinking, I bet that person's better than me. You're thinking, I wonder what they got. Right? Because we know, man, that's what our prayer, our heart is that is what this family would feel like. That it would be a place where we know it is safe to be real, to be raw, and to expose your heart, because that is what we want to see transformed. That is what we want to see renewed. As Jesus tells us in Luke chapter 6, the good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasure produces evil, for out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So our desire in all of these environments, 30,000-foot ground level, at especially root level, is that our interactions, what we teach, why we teach, how the conversations that we're having with one another is always targeted at the heart. Our desire, our prayer, the very heart of Reach Rockwall is Jesus. And his desire to see hearts renewed so that the outpouring of that is seeing minds renewed and lives renewed. So we are here, we're support staff, here to equip and encourage and unleash this family to explode into this city that he has planted us as gospel-centered, gospel-focused, gospel and spirit-empowered ministers of reconciliation to see renewal explode in this community and beyond.